You're listening to M.T.V.B. Podcast. Movies, TV, video and board games. This show may contain swearing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M.T.V.B. podcast, the podcast that talks about my four favourite subjects, that's movies,
television, video games
and board games. I'm your host Anthony, as well as most people know me as the Ant-Man, and welcome. This week's episode we're going to carry on with our series where we talk about games from a very specific console. This week's episode we're going to be talking about the Game Boy, the original OG handheld. I'm joined around the table by the guys that love to talk about Game Boy games. Introduce yourselves around the table, please.
It's a me, Mario.
Super Mario.
And it's a me, Barry White.
Barry, hi.
Hi, well, otherwise known as H, the man with two lists. Slightly croaky this week, I do.
Slightly croaky, but actually two lists this time, I believe.
Actually two lists for you, my friend.
Yes, nice. So, yeah, guys, thank you for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
And for coming on the this version of the games one. You've done one about the specific consoles before?
Not specific consoles. We did.
Oh, you done the side-scrollers, didn't you?
Yeah, side-scrolling beat-em-ups.
Yeah, no, I was present for both the NES and the SNES.
That's right, you was, yes. So you're no stranger to this one, sir. That's right. So, yeah, how was the list for you guys? Top 5 Game Boy games of all time?
There were more than 5?
Can you just stick with 5 for
once?
Sorry.
Not as difficult as I first thought when I approached this. All of a sudden, they started coming out of the woodwork. And, I suddenly realised that although when you think about like the NES and the SNES and consoles like that, you think, oh, yeah, there's 1,000 games I could pick from. Absolutely. What can you pick for the Game Boy? You probably went back to the same 2 or 3 games.
Well, the thing with the Game Boy was they were all the same format, weren't they?
Pretty much, yeah.
Hundreds of games, and they all had the same game mechanic.
Yeah.
It was either platformer, puzzle game, or top-down kind of Zelda-style thing.
Yep.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which
absolutely. It worked very well.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I've squeezed 2 lists out of this.
Nice. I mean, I barely scraped 5 out of this myself, so I'm quite impressed.
I suddenly realised I think I spent more time on the Game Boy than I thought I originally did.
But no, you're right. We mentioned this like a season ago. We were going to do this, and then we were like really tackling what we could pick. And then now all of a sudden there's 2 lists. You've had time to work on it, sir.
Thanks for giving me a year. Yeah.
He's played every game since then and realised
it's like there's actually good stuff. But Mario, how about you? How was the list for you?
Yeah, it was okay. Like I said, I basically went back through every game that I ever owned for it, which, like H says, wasn't actually as many as I seem to remember. And then kind of did a little bit of, I don't remember this game, but I know I had it, and then look at a few videos here and there and was like, oh yeah, now I remember. That's not going on the list.
Fair enough. All right, so let's do the normal where we do some questions and then obviously the top 5s to start. So let's go with, let's start with the console itself. Like, how revolutionary was it to be like a handheld at the time? Like, what was it, 89 it came out?
89, it was, I mean, I think we got it in the UK in 1990.
We got 90.
Yeah, I grew up with the Game & Watch. So
this is where I was going to... Yeah, so, Mario's Cement Factory and Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong Jr. Snoopy Tennis and things like that. And these were brilliant. But yeah, so to advance 8-bit towards an actual handheld game where you could replace the cartridge, I mean, it was revolutionary.
How many bits was the Game Boy?
8-bit.
It was 8-bit. It was 8-bit as well.
8-bit monochromatic, and it only had 5 colours, I think, if you include the back screen.
Yep.
Wow, okay.
No backlight.
Was there a backlight? I was going to say.
No, there was no backlight, so you couldn't play it in direct sunlight. You couldn't play it in the dark. So basically, you had to angle it at a certain angle at certain times of the day so you could get the screen and you could view the screen.
Could you imagine
properly.
that nowadays? People would be flipping their shit.
Just like discovering the Ark of the Covenant.
It was, but it was... The thing about the Game Boy was like, so it had that tiny, tiny screen, and by the time you put all the bolt-on accessories so that you could actually play it, it was the size of a console with a CRT TV on top of it.
So I was going to talk about that. I mean, it's like I thought back about this, and I thought it was like modding out a Vauxhall Corsa. You had a magnifier, a light, a printer, printer.
Printer, yeah. And a camera.
Oh,
it had a camera,
yeah,
the camera, because the camera came with the printer, and you could take the picture, and it came out on that heat, like receipt paper.
That's right.
You could get,
the printer paper.
But see, Gal mentioned that before on an episode, didn't he? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But they brought it back as well. So they brought it back.
People still use it today, apparently. Yeah.
Apparently, it's really good, but I can't see how. But yeah,
but hey, if it still works, broke don't fix it. Eh?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've always mentioned the colours there, Mario. The black and green, grey, whatever it was. Did it bother you that much about it? I mean,
no, like H said, going from like the only way you could, when you were going travelling on long distances, you either had those little travel games where you always lost a piece down the back of the car seat, or you had the watch and game. And so you'd sit there and you'd be playing those kind of games. So having something like that was just like a flip. It was the first flip console, but only had one game on it. But having that and then playing them for hours, and there was no real storyline to them either.
Was that the one that was like a Tiger game? But
exactly that. So
yeah.
Tiger Games was another version of exactly the same thing, but Nintendo brought out their versions, and it was like classic Nintendo games, but really monochromatic. And the only thing that really kind of changed was like they sped up over time.
Yeah.
And so you had Donkey Kong was like the original Donkey Kong game, but it was all black and white with I think the barriers, the kind of girders that you were trying to jump up were already pre-programmed in.
They were printed onto the screen, the actual screen itself, so that the sprites would move, and they were programmed in to move along.
So it looked like it was a motion thing. Yeah.
It married up with what was printed on the screen.
And the Game Boy allegedly was supposed to, so their marketing idea was that it was going to be an advancement on that. So basically your cartridge was going to contain the game, which would be the next evolution of those games. And it didn't, thankfully, do that. Because the games were better. Like they had a storyline, they had movement. Even if the storyline was the same through a lot of the games, they still had the same mechanics. They still had these things, but they kept you entertained because there was a slight evolution or a slightly different level or a slightly harder way of doing something. Yeah, and that's what made the Game Boy really good. Like especially on long journeys, on flights or anything like that.
It was a parent's best friend.
Yeah, the batteries as well. What was it? 4 AA batteries.
That's right. Yeah,
and it seemed to last a lifetime until they brought out the rechargeable packs and stuff that you could plug in, and then you plug your charger into it. Even they, I think, were like they were doing dodgy ones of those that you could buy from Chinese import, and they didn't catch fire. So it wasn't like.
But they got really warm though. Like you can tell it was like that's how it's charging. It's getting warm.
After 16 hours, they got warm.
and it was the volume on it as well. So you had a mono speaker in the bottom of it.
That's right.
Which would bleed your ears if you turned it up full volume in a full car with people and no sound on. Like they were awful. And you had the headphone socket.
Did it used to come with a pair of earphones?
Came with a pair of headphones. They were black and they had the red and blue.
To as I remember, indicate which side it went on.
The first time I'd ever seen the red and blue indicators on headphones. But yeah, they came with those as well, and they were really basic as well. And I think they had the bit of fluff over the top of them as well.
They did. Yeah.
And which would always get left in your ear. So you pull out the headphone and there'd be this bit of fluff. And
pick it out.
When your mum snatches the Game Boy off you.
Yeah. No. Oh.
What about you, Howard? Did it ever bother you at all, the colouring for it at the time? Or
no, I don't think so. I think because of the nature of what the Game Boy was, I was just so excited to have this finally this thing that you could hold in your hand and take with you. You didn't have to sit in your front room with your parents and your sisters, and you had limited time in order to play these games. So yeah, the opportunity to plug and play literally anywhere that you wanted was the bee's knees. Yeah. So no, not really. The colour, you got used to it. I think you forget in the end that it had no colour within it.
Yeah, I think you got into the game, didn't you? And you just you forget about it. It's like watching a black and white film. You forget the colours there sometimes.
I think as well, you spent so long trying to actually be able to see the screen that you didn't really care when you were playing the game. Like angling your arms at really weird angles just so you can get the light on that screen in the first place. If you didn't have that,
a generation of hunched-backed children.
It really was. Yeah, sitting in the car and you kind of trying to move it towards the light, and you put your hand up, put your hand away. Yeah.
So yeah, it was designed. So you obviously mentioned it being designed for the go. Did you ever take it out of your house? Did it ever come to school with you, or did it,
Oh yes,
take it on a camping trip or something?
School was a push for me because I knew it was either going to get stolen or damaged.
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely on days out or trips and stuff like that, or random mates. Always, yeah. It was the beauty of it.
I think I mentioned to you earlier about it before this, where we used to take it in school, and when we had the link cable, we would play 2-player games. Yeah. The golf, Tetris. I can't remember what other, tennis, I think,
Tennis,
as well.
yeah.
And just linking up and playing those games. I think Sensible Soccer at one stage seems to ring a bell.
Did they
as
all
well.
hover around you because you were like playing?
Oh, it's everyone, oh, can I have a go? Can I have a go? No, get your own. It's not that expensive.
Which, how much was it at the time?
So I think it was about 90 quid. About 89.
Which was how much in 89?
Oh,
God.
I think now it's probably. Well, let's put it this way. So, what is it? A new console will cost you anywhere up to £500 now, won't it?
Yeah, at least.
And a Switch is what, £300?
Yeah, just under, I think, isn't it?
So, and back then, so your Super Nintendo was £140, as I remember it.
Yeah.
And that would be the equivalent of your Xbox now. So that kind
Hell.
of puts it into kind of perspective. And I think my first PlayStation when I bought that was £200. That was PS1.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's here to work that out because that's math, kids.
That is.
That's not math. I haven't actually given you anything to tell you what the difference in the inflation rate is. And I'm not doing that off the top of my head either. But that kind of puts it in perspective. Like, Switch is £300. A Game Boy was 90 quid.
It sounds weird saying that, but it was a lot of money back then, wasn't it?
But still the affordable option.
Yes,
for those that
absolutely, yeah.
Didn't have
Was
a
it-
Nintendo.
You were doing what a paper round would pay £10 or something because that was like your main job income at that age.
That's right, yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning,
Paper
riding
round,
around
yeah.
with your bag on your back, dodging the cars.
Ink on your hands.
Ink on your hands, yeah. Getting home and then realising you're late for school because you took a little bit too long getting away from that dog. And then you
The
kind
real
of
life paperboy,
it
everyone.
it really was. And so you get £10 a week and you'd be there counting down or ticking down on the calendar.
Per
I've got
week,
this
yeah.
many weeks until I get this.
Absolutely.
And then the games as well. So if you look at the games now as well, what is it? A Switch game will set you back anything up to £80.
Yeah.
Depending on the
highest
game
rate,
and the
depending on
title,
game.
yeah.
I mean, what were the Game Boys? Well, they like
£20, £30, yeah.
Quid, I seem to remember, yeah.
Yeah, so what was it? A cartridge for a console was about 50 quid. So these were about 20, depending on the title as well. So you could get the Kung Fu Master was like £19 or something, and it was always in the bargain bid for about $10.99. So yeah, and that and Pit Fighter, they were the two that you would always find, and you go through all the bargain bin, and you'd have to be searching for something decent in there. But yeah, they're about 25 to 30 quid, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
Nice. You guys kind of touched up on the next question, which is about the accessory side to the console. So I personally did have like the magnifying glass, the light in the end. Then I had one this clip on, and it's got like dual speakers on the sides. It flips out. Did you guys obviously have stuff like that at all?
I think the magnifier was a must.
Absolutely.
The light was a must, although that had its separate battery pack as well. You had a 4-way cable that you could get to play like a Bomberman and stuff like that. And then what was the other one as well? Oh, the Game Genie.
Oh, the Genie.
The Game Genie, that was it, yes.
Which you then plugged in the top, and you went through Nintendo Power Magazine, typed in the code, and then you got unlimited lives, or you were able to do something spectacular and jump through walls. Or
By the time you plugged all of this in, you needed very strong wrists to hold it up.
it was
just tipping forward.
When the batteries ran out, you could use it to break into cars. It was that
Pretty much, yeah.
My next favourite hobby.
Yeah, and the last question was kind of another accessory for it, but for the next console up, and it's obviously the Super Game Boy.
Yep.
Your ability to play Game Boy games on your Super Nintendo. Did you guys ever have this?
Absolutely.
Ever use it? Whatnot?
course,
Yeah? Did you prefer? Because I believe they made them into colour as well, or you could change it or something like that, I believe.
Accepted colour cartridges, I believe. But yeah, I think the one that because I never advanced beyond original Game Boy, so I never, as a kid, had colour Game Boy. That was only later on with the shop and stuff like that. I discovered that. But yeah, from what I understand, you would accept colour cartridges.
Yeah, you had two. You had the original Super Game Boy, or Game Boy, whatever it was called, and then you had Super 2. And the Super 2 would accept both cartridges, and the Super 1 would only accept the Game
I never
Boy,
knew there was
original
another
Game Boy.
version. I thought it was only one.
And the Game Boy ones were great. It did do that colour thing,
Right.
but in the same way of like putting a monochromatic, Game Boy original into the Game Boy Color. Like it changed a few of the colours here and there. It didn't really do much.
But it was an option.
Yeah, it was an option. Gave you brightness and stuff a little bit here and there. But it was pretty good. I mean, the Game Boy Pocket made it a bit more accessible to have the Game Boy. But the Super Game Boy, you could play it on the TV. You could get more player games out of it as well. Because I don't know how it did it, but you were able to do that on the screen. I don't know if you remember later on, like the evolutions of it. You could get a Pac-Man game for the GameCube.
No.
So
hang on.
the Game Boy Advance,
Yeah.
this was, and you could then plug that into the GameCube, and the guy on the handheld would be Pac-Man, and everyone on the console would be a ghost, and they'd be chasing you around the game.
Was this kind of like a modular lock-in for the cube itself?
It was, yeah. So it locked
remember
into the Game Boy Advance, and then you could play the game, play Pac-Man on the GameCube.
So you're going back to the 2-player thing you mentioned. So could you do like Tetris and all that, like without the link cable, essentially?
You could, but you were both on the screen at the same time, so God knows how you'd be able to distinguish what you were doing.
Revolutionary piece of kit, though.
Well, for its time, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Taking a handheld as well, a monochromatic handheld, and then putting it into, your colour console, TV console. By now standards, it seems pointless, but then you go, oh, actually...
Yeah, because you wouldn't, like, upgrade...
No,
use an upgrade to play a downgrade game, surely,
but
right?
then you look at what the PS Vita, I think, was the first one where they did crossover, where you could actually use the handheld with the console in the sense of, like, I think you could use it as a mirror, your rear view mirror in Gran Turismo. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
You could set the PS Vita up. I can't remember which one of the PS consoles it was, but playing Gran Turismo, you could have it as your rear view mirror. So you could sit out there and use
I guess it's a good way of doing it, I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Involving it, maybe.
It does sound like you're putting a big boy spoiler on a Vauxhall Nova.
Exactly. But then that's exactly what you're doing, except you're putting the spoiler... you're not just putting the spoiler on, you're putting the body kit, you're changing the engine mapping, you're doing the whole car, rebuilding it, but around a Citroen 2CV. Like, that was how it was, or that Game Boy was anyway.
Nice. That's pretty much it I've got for questions, really. If you don't want to add anything to it, then we would start with the top 5s. Let's do it then.
It's time for a top 5.
Right, so obviously normal. We're going to roll the dice to see who goes first. So shall I go and then we'll go around?
Go for it.
Number 10, go for it, sir. Mario's rolling. 3. Oh, it's held down to you, Howard. Beat your 10. Come on. Ooh, 10. Do I have to roll again now between me and Howie? 18. Oh, there's an 18 for Ant. 18 again. Oh, come on. Now this is getting silly. Go, catch it.
Yep. Go on.
Hot potato.
Come on. Up potato. 19. He's going to get the Hellfire symbol now. Right. I'll go first then. Right. So, if we don't mention one of your games, because there's obviously hundreds of Game Boy games out there, bollocks, you should have been in this episode. Number 5.
Number 5.
Right. My number 5 is going to be a game, again, I'm going to bore everyone because I'm a fan of the franchise. My number 5 is Alien 3.
I'm out of here. Bye.
I quite like this version because basically it's a different version of the game that was released on the Super Nintendo Mega Drive, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Which was a side-scrolling game. Go around shooting aliens and obviously saving prisoners and stuff, as well as a Metroidvania sort of puzzle to it. And this one was very much like you mentioned, Mario, earlier on. It's a down version of it, isn't it? Where you're looking down like a Metroid.
Yeah.
Link.
That's it. And the prisoners are walking willy-nilly around it. And then the aliens just show up out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. But then I remember like playing this as a kid, like in my room in the dark with the light on, and you go around and there's all these unfair suckers are popping up, and it just to scare the crap out of me. It's like it's this crappy little 8-bit thing. Obviously the SNES and Mega Drive version is way far superior to this, but I don't know what it is. I just like the fact that they did something different with it. A lot of my other games are very much carbon copies of the NES versions that came out of the games. Just downgraded to a Game Boy. But I picked this version specifically. I'm not going to do what Gal does. Specifically because, again, they just completely changed the game as to what it was. It's essentially the same sort of idea to it, but the fact that it's done differently to what the Game Boy was compatible with, I don't think they'd be able to do. And it was what the SNES did.
It was task-based as well, wasn't it? So you had to do certain tasks to open certain areas, and there were little secret areas.
Like puzzle solving occasionally as well, wasn't there? I think the other one did that, but not as much as the Game Boy version did. But this came very late in the Game Boy's life, didn't it? I remember getting this towards the end where I was downgrading this from this to a PS1 in the end sort of thing. Very late in the life, but I had to put this on there. Just the fact that it was completely different to the original.
It's a good game.
My number 5.
No, I never played it. I never played it.
No?
No, I mean, obviously, I think we've talked about Alien 3 before on different platforms, haven't we? And you've excelled in the fact that it was actually a good game compared to the...
This was the thing. I said I didn't play it for a long, long time when we had it. We had the game, and we started playing it, and we just couldn't get to grips with it. The mechanic wasn't like for your brain to kind of take over what you actually had to achieve. It just didn't kind of compute. And then one day it just clicks, and you're like, oh, actually, this actually is better than I thought it would be. And you carry on playing it. And there's not so much like guns and stuff involved in it. It really is just avoid them and complete the puzzles.
Yeah, because I remember them just respawning anyway. If they came off the screen, there's that annoying thing that they come back, you shot a facehugger, come back down again, and it's back there again anyway, isn't it? So,
and it had the motion tracker as well.
It did, yes.
And on the Game Boy, you still had the BP, horrible.
On that little mono speaker of the... shut the fuck up.
Just to drive you insane.
I get it, there's one nearby.
But yeah, my number 5, that's it. Alien 3.
Nice. So I went with the first advent of a Super Mario character.
Okay.
And it's not the first of the games on this console. It's Super Mario Land 3. And it was the last one to carry the name Super Mario Land.
It wasn't World, was it? It was Super Mario Land, wasn't it? Yeah.
So the Game Boy was all Land, and Wario was the last one of the 3. And I thought it was a different take on it. So your main character is not Mario.
Yeah.
It's Wario. And what he wants to buy his own house, essentially. I mean...
How domestic.
It really was. It was a weird game. But you were kind of open worldy in that you could walk anywhere on the map to choose your level. You could then go into your level, and your level was free roaming. Like, you weren't stuck in the confines like you used to be in Mario, where it's a linear progression to the end. Like, you walk along and you go left to right, and eventually you reach there. I mean, on the odd occasion you go up, but you're still going left to right eventually to reach the flag. With Wario, you would go up around the level, collect the treasures, look for the treasures. It was still platform based, and Wario had the option of wearing different hats. So every hat would have a different feature, and you could have like a ball hat, which would allow you to smash through things. You had a jet hat that made you jump higher and fly, a dragon hat that fired fireballs. But the other thing about it was, so in Mario, where you jump on the flags and you get to the end of the level, you're welcomed, you're put into, you go off the level, you meet the princess, all that stuff.
She's in another castle.
That's it, yeah. Well, kind of. In this one, you have to pay to leave the level. So throughout it, so throughout it, you can collect coins, you can collect treasures, and they amount to a value. And then to leave the level, once you reach the end of the level, you go there and you have to pay to get out the level. And the other thing was your coins that you collected along the way, you could use to take out your enemies. So not only just jumping on them or using the hats, you could throw your coins at your enemies and stuff. But the other thing it did as well was there were certain levels on the game which were based on where they were. So you went to a beach, and if the tide was out on the beach, the level was dry. If the tide was in on the beach...
That's pretty cool.
You could do it underwater. So yeah, it was a really good game and really good graphics because they'd evolved it from the last.
Again, this was like the later life of the Game Boy, wasn't it? This is the later life of the Game Boy, yeah.
I think 94, I think it was come out. And it was like the last of the Mario Land games before we went into the Wario franchise.
So what was the kind of cassette of the Wario character? Because was this his first introduction?
This was his first ever introduction.
So what was he originally? Because I always perceived him...
he didn't exist.
No, he was in the second one, wasn't he?
Well, no, actually, you're right.
He was the bad guy in the second one, wasn't he?
Yeah, I always perceived him as a bad guy, but obviously later on within Mario mythos, he become a bit of an anti-hero.
He's still the bad guy, but this is the thing. So
he just wants a house.
He's basically squatting in Mario's castle. Right. Mario comes along and goes, no, get out. And the whole game is then him, after being evicted, looking for enough money to buy himself a house.
So Mario's the villain in this one.
It's quite a sad story.
It gets even sadder. Because at the end of the game, right, if you complete the game, you go up against this genie. And now what you're actually trying to get, the big treasure you're trying to find, is a statue of Princess Peach.
Okay.
Which is, so you find this statue of Princess Peach, and then Mario comes along and goes, oh, thank you very much, and takes it from you. So you can't even pawn it to get your house. But after that goes, a genie appears, and the genie goes, okay, you can have you can have your house, you can have your castle that you've been yearning for. And depending on how much coin you've currently got on you, depends on what you get. So if you had all your coin knocked out of you by the last couple of villains and you've got nothing, you get like a log house, and which is literally a hollowed out tree with a door on the front of it.
Okay.
And then if you get more, you get like a castle, and it gets bigger and bigger each, depending on how much money you've got at the end of the game. But yeah, it was a really different take on.
It is
a
it's
really
completely
take on
different.
Mario.
Yeah, I like the aspect of like not having enough money to go to the next level. So I assume you'd have to redo it.
Well, you still had the time limits like you had in all the Mario games, but you had to go back through the level, collect all the coins, come back to the end exit. So
Within that time limit.
in the time limit.
Right, so you don't redo the level.
No.
You within the time limit, you have to go back.
Yeah, you could go back and start. You can carry on in the level. That's what I mean. It was a free roaming platform game. So if you destroyed certain blocks, you wouldn't be able to access them backwards in the game.
Yeah.
Were destroyed.
But if you then went backwards of the game, you could then go back through it and collect coin and then eventually leave that level. But yeah, you had to collect so much coin to leave the level to get onto the next one. But of course, it's in your benefit because the more coin you get, the bigger your castle is at the end of the game.
Just like real life.
Nice.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's what I mean. It teaches you to budget, and it's the most boring game ever, isn't it?
It's a work game.
It's like sim job
Lesson
or
learned,
something.
kids.
Yeah. Basically, if you're a treasure hunter, you're going to have a log house. But no, that was it. That was my number 5. Yeah, Wario
Nice.
Land. I thought it was a really good game, a different take on Mario, and I've not seen anything like it since. Really,
No.
It's a shame they never carry on with the lands with other like portable games that they could have done or something.
yeah, all the Switch games could have probably given Land and
or in fact a remake, just a remake of the 3 or something.
Well, I know that they did do another Land later on. I'm trying to remember the console it was on, but they did do a Wario Land. They've done a couple of Wario Lands later on, and then he just disappeared. I don't think he's been in anything since.
I think
Wario's in Mario Kart, isn't he?
He crops up in things like that, or Melee or something.
Yeah, he's just like an extra
Smash
character.
Bros,
Smash Bros. He's just like he's in our characters, but without him, you don't get Waluigi. So
because the evil versions are both, aren't they? Yeah.
that's it. And without him, you don't get Princess Daisy either.
That's true. Yes, yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Because they never used Peach.
It's like a multiverse.
It was Daisy was the princess in the Wario games, or in the first incarnation of her is through Wario.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I never knew that actually. We should have done a Did You Know? Damn it,
I
tell me.
Quick, do it hell out of everyone on.
There we go, we got it in. Nice. Anything else on Wario Land?
No, I'm good.
Howard, you've got 2 lists. What are the lists?
I do. So I've put together a list of Game Boy blockbusters and Game Boy ball suckers.
So I take it we'll start with the ball sucker first.
We'll start with the ball suckers, yeah.
Okay.
These are games that, although I played to absolute death, on retrospect and going back and revisiting specifically for these lists, realised that they sucked balls. They did.
I love it.
I'm not going to be beat around the bush about this. They were truly awful, and this is why this list has been compiled. Although the fact that they've made the list is the fact that I've played them over and over and over.
Nice.
And over. Yeah, so number 5 on the ball sucker list is the Amazing Spider-Man, which came out in 1990.
That was awful. That was so bad.
I'm so glad you said that. Now, fully familiar
That's
with
my
the
number
people
one special.
all around this table. We're all superhero fans. We're all Marvel fans. And yeah, in 1990, when this came out, I was hyped. I thought, finally, a game that we could play. I mean, I don't think I played a Spider-Man game since the Atari.
It was boxed like the one from the SNES as well. It was boxed identical.
Yeah, so it had that allure to it. And you thought, finally, something I'll play in my hand. I'll go on, play it on the go.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Was that the one that had the web meter at the bottom?
Yes.
Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, well, there were 2. There was that and the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then they released Spider-Man 3, which I don't talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it did. So every time that you fired your web or you swung, it would count down. Then you need to. I think you either know. I can't remember because I really didn't get that far into the replay.
No.
But Spider-Man was a hunchback as well.
He was.
He was.
He was all bent over,
and he walked like that.
He stooped. Yeah. I mean, so, although the graphics were decent enough.
I think the backgrounds were better than the main sprites on that game.
You might be right. Yeah, the gameplay it was just bobbins. I mean, the things that I liked about it were there was so a lot of it was side scrolling, and you would jump on platforms in order to get up the building to defeat the enemies and things like that. But there was a section every now and then where you would basically wall crawl, so you'd have to crawl from the bottom of the building up to the top of the building.
That's right.
Bash your enemies on the way up, or shoot them or whatever, and then just avoid things that fell. And then that was more enjoyable than the entire game itself. So getting through these sections in order to get to that was possibly the aim of the game.
Right.
I completed this thing umpteen times, but it was only because I had nothing else to play at the time. You play Spider-Man. The conceit is that Mary Jane is kidnapped, and Peter Parker's identity has been discovered. Standard stuff, really.
Yeah.
And then you have to fight through end of level bosses like Mysterio, Hobgoblin, Scorpion, Rhino, Doctor Octopus, and Venom. 1990. I don't know. Were you Marvel or DC at the time, guys? What were you?
Definitely Marvel at a younger age.
So
Right.
I was when was that? I was Marvel still. I hadn't quite read Frank Miller at that point, so I was still Marvel.
You weren't converted. Well, I mean, we were starved of anything back in 1990, and it was the start of the big
Tim
muscle.
Burton. It was the Tim Burton Batman era.
Yeah. So that was kind of
the
the
year
forefront,
before-
and
the year
everybody was
before that
raging
just
about
came out,
Batman and DC, and DC was making its sort of like its fourth advent then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But we were coming into the world of big muscled superheroes with pouches, and the women were wearing little, and the comics were just absolutely dross. Well, they were terrible. When this game came along, I thought, yeah, brilliant, yeah, let's play this. But no, it sucked.
I remember you double jumped to start web slinging, and then I was like, I can't stop web slinging now. I was like,
No, I know.
Yeah,
So you fight all of that time in order to get the mash the buttons to get the mechanism to web sling, and then that's it. You're just web slinging, and then you run out of web, and you fall, and you die, and then you have to go right back to the beginning. It wasn't great.
I have to admit, the amount of times I was going to take that out of the cartridge and flung the fucking thing, and that game pissed me
I
off.
like the little intermission. So moving on to the next level, and it would come up with Spidey's on his little his 1990 radio, and it's one of the villains was on the other end, and he was taunting him. It was a bit like a two-way between two wrestlers. So I'm going to get you, Spider-Man. Yeah, well, not if I get you.
Sounds more like cyberbullying, like before cyberbullying.
The original cyberbullying, yeah.
It all came from this game. I'd completed this game and just yearned for the Atari 1980 Spider-Man.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
It's
a far superior game.
Yeah. And then, so was it much of an upgrade for you, or the fact you could just take on and go and show people it?
I think that was the novelty. Yeah, much like many of the games on the Ballsucker list. I mean,
look at this shit.
This is terrible. Don't buy this game. So that was the Ballsucker. The blockbuster for me, number 5 was Dr. Mario. Same year.
Nice.
Now, obviously, we'd been introduced to another type of game where things would drop from the sky, and you would change the orientation of these shapes in order to slot them in, and because this one essentially was meant to be colour.
It was the port. It was supposed to be a port from the NES, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So depending on the different variation of the grey within the graphics, meant you could interlock it with these little pills with other pills, and whereas the other game that I shall not mention just yet,
you had to be 3 of the same, didn't it?
It was, 3 in a row, and any type of orientation. Then these things would disappear, and it would drop a level, and then more would drop from the sky, and so on and so on and so on.
It was all to fight viruses or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was under the guise of...
That's right, yeah. So you'd have this little virus that would appear, and the little graphic would sort of sneer at you, and you'd shake your fist, and then you'd drop these pills in order to find a cure to fight this virus. So it was very, very entertaining. I loved it because it followed the format of another game that is potentially on somebody else's list, so I'm not going to mention it now, but... I've written a few things down here. It was basically vitamin capsules that are automatically tossed into the field by Dr. Mario.
It was like a big bottle it goes into, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So it was like a beaker, and essentially what you're doing, you're finding the combination that would fight this virus. But I loved it.
So it was like a carbon copy of the NES version, wasn't it? Yeah, but without the colour.
Without the colour, like Mario said, it ported over very, very well, just with the lack of colour. But it didn't deter you from playing, because the gradient of the grey that appeared within it was easily playable. I loved it, Dr. Mario.
Nice.
They brought it out for the iPhone a while back.
No way.
But this was the thing. It was done like everything they do on the iPhone, whereby you have microtransactions and stuff like that, and
got to ruin it like that.
And then recently I say recently, about 2 years ago, they went, no, we're not supporting this anymore. So it's literally just going.
What?
I was like, what?
Oh.
And they took it off of the iPhone store, and I was like,
probably got sued by Nintendo.
Probably, or Candy Crush or someone kind of went, oh yeah, no, that's our idea.
I mean, this was such a popular game. It went on to sell 5.3 million copies worldwide. But this is the question. So, you guys are Sega guys. Would you?
I like Nintendo as
Would
well.
you rate this over Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine?
Oh, 100%. Yes, totally.
Would you? 'Cause
Yes.
It was a similar game.
I rate this over Columns.
Oh my god! You heard it here
But
first.
it had it had a better soundtrack as well.
It did. Yeah, it did.
And of course,
Yeah.
the sound processor in the SNES anyway was better, and the Game Boy itself could do better than people allowed it to do. And also, like the game playability as well. Dr. Robotnik was like a one-trick pony, really.
I suppose it was.
I think this was better 100 times.
Those little germ things just bug the hell out of me. It's like, I want to knock you. I want to get free of the road to get rid of you.
Yeah.
They were as annoying as that dog from Duck Hunt.
Oh yeah, but everybody hated the dog.
Kid thing.
But yeah, definitely.
Shoot the dog.
Nice. Anything else on Dr. Mario?
No.
No? Okay, so we'll go
Nice
to
little number 5.
Number 4's then.
Number 4.
My number 4, again, is a straight port from the NES to the Game Boy, and it's DuckTales.
Oh.
So DuckTales, again, a friend of mine had the NES version, so I had played it, I knew what it was of it, and found out that DuckTales for the Game Boy is a downgrade without the colour. It is essentially just the same game with all the same levels, all the same bosses and whatnot, and pretty much just, it was for my accessibility to play the game at the time because I couldn't, I was only a kid at the time. My parents couldn't afford games for NES at the time, which was 50, 60 quid ago or something, whatnot.
And the console as well, like even for its time, it was quite expensive for what it was.
Absolutely. I mean, there was like an Amazon stage, a Haunted House stage, Moon and all that. What's the other one? The Frozen stage, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was that. There was Transylvania.
That was it, yes.
Transylvania.
That's
and
right.
you had the option of Launchpad McDuck turning up every now.
That's right, yes, I remember that. And wasn't there, like, he kills them with the pogo sticks as well?
Yeah.
And
there was a snow level where if you use the pogo stick, you get stuck in the snow.
That's right, yes. It was a nice little touch, wasn't it? I remember that, yeah. And it would take your health off as well, I believe.
Yep. And the Transylvania level, you had porting mirrors. So you go into the mirrors and that would transport you to another part.
Metromania style, wasn't it? Yeah.
And you couldn't complete the entire game without going backwards and forwards. And the amount of times you had to go back to Transylvania as well. Just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just like, I mean, I wish some of the other games on my list were just a carbon copy of the NES version because they could have done it. I think the Game Boy had the ability to do it again without the lack of colour and stuff to it. And I think DuckTales is it's proof in the pudding that it could, do that.
But do you think that they made them slightly different? Because otherwise, if the danger was that you were buying the same game for a different console.
So for DuckTales, it was a straight port, except they had to redo all of the graphics.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had to cut. Scrooge McDuck is shorter. The screen size that you're scrolling through is narrower. So your field of view is completely changed. But the actual gameplay itself is exactly the same. So it's just the graphics and the sprites that had changed. And there were little kind of nuances they put into it. But the music on the NES version is far superior.
Oh, yeah,
to this.
absolutely.
There are levels on this that could smash glass. Like there's one of them where it's quite high pitched and quite shrill.
Well, even when you kill the enemies, they do like a high sort of sound.
Yeah, it really could curdle milk, but it was such a good game. Such a good game. It was one of the two. So I talked about before we did this, we had ours imported and we had games that were given to my cousin, games that were given to us. One of the games that my cousins had was DuckTales. It was the one they were given.
Okay.
And so we stole it from them at every opportunity.
Nice. It was a great game, though.
It is so good.
I believe they remade it now and stuff. You can get like on Xbox or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I might have to do that, actually. Bring back some memories. I can't say more about it because it might be on someone else's list, so we'll go to Mario.
Okay, so my number 4 is a game that was... so I know it as Final Fantasy Adventure.
Okay.
But actually in the UK and Europe, it was called The Secret of Mana.
Oh, yes.
Oh, of course, yes.
So it basically...
That was on the Game Boy?
It was on the Game Boy.
No way, okay.
Final Fantasy had many versions on the Game Boy. So you had Final Fantasy Legend 1, Final Fantasy Legend 2, then you had Final Fantasy Adventure, which was the one that I knew. And it was essentially... you're a barbarian in a cage and you have to save the mana tree from being attacked by this He's called the Big Boss, so I'm guessing he's the biggest boss of them all. But he was your villain, and you had to go through it, and you had to go through all these challenges, get your weapons and stuff. And that was what was different to this and any of the Zelda games, was the amount of weapons you could get. And you could upgrade your magic, you could upgrade you. It was the first time that I'd ever played a game where you actually had that kind of scoring system, and you could give yourself like your different skills, up your magic, up your battling, up your defense and stuff like that, and you're able to portion that out to yourself.
Yeah.
And it was just a really good kind of easy to play. It was a time waster as well, because you could walk off in all sorts of directions to all different tasks, and just like the Zelda games, you had like little puzzles you had to do. Like you had to use a chain flare to get across a log, to get across a bridge, and then you had to go this way, and then you couldn't use this, and you had to use this weapon to fight them, and it was it was a really long-winded, really kind of entertaining, kind of top-down RPG.
I remember, because I'm familiar with it being on the SNES. So is it the same sort of game, or is it?
So, in looking back at this, there's loads of videos about these games on like YouTube and stuff. But looking at one of them, they were saying like the Secret of Mana games, or these Zelda games, that then went on to spawn a completely different branch of Final Fantasy on like the SNES and stuff, which then became the Secret of Mana, and they're related, but they're not the same game.
Okay. Because I know their numbers on Final Fantasy are mixed up. Like Final Fantasy 3 is essentially 6 on the SNES or something like that. It's very weird, isn't it?
But if you then take these Final Fantasy Adventure ones, so Final Fantasy Legend and Legend 2, they have absolutely nothing to do with the franchise whatsoever.
Really?
It was just they took the name and they put it onto a top-down RPG. And they're all fun. They all have that kind of thing. But the problem with Secret of Mana one, and it is kind of its down point, is the amount of text you have to get through.
Yeah.
Just to get past the levels on some of them. But other than that, it's such a great, entertaining game. Like running from one end to the other, one dungeon to the next, and solving one puzzle, and climbing up, and then reaching the big boss and destroying him, and then the happy story afterwards. Yeah, it was really cool game. Really long.
So I'm shocked I never knew it was on the Game Boy.
Yeah.
So I know, because people crave over Secret Man. I think like Chrono Trigger as well is another one.
Yep,
it's just like
I never played Chrono Trigger.
I never did, but it's like it's so high in value now. And I never knew it was on the Game Boy. Nice pick though.
Thank you.
Howard, over to the ball sucking number 4.
Ball sucker number 4 is Gremlins 2: The New.
Yes,
Never played this game. I saw
own
it.
this. This is a hard son of a bitch. This game,
And that's mainly why it's made this list. It came out in 1992, and I mean, I love Gremlins. I think we all probably love Gremlins.
Yes.
And yeah, it was hot on the tails of the film. It's not essentially a bad game, but because it was so fucking difficult, I never completed it. Never ever completed it. I think,
remember he had like a pencil which did
Well, this is the
absolutely
thing.
nothing
So,
to like kill people and stuff. Or,
it's
or
a
kill things.
side-scroller platform. You play as Gizmo, and essentially you need to reach Gremlin Control Center, the GCC, to wipe out all the gremlins inside with a pencil.
Yeah.
You get other little things along the way, but that's your main mode of defense, and you just basically have to go along stabbing things in the face.
But they would hit you in the process of you hitting them, wasn't it?
So I mean, it was
so annoying.
It was harsh and unforgiving. Let's just put it this way. But it would force you to just keep going, keep going.
Didn't it have sections where you had to jump, but you were going to take damage from that jump regardless, or something?
There
I
was
can't remember something like that.
no
wasn't it?
way around some of it. So it would have little flying bats that would come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Were they the bat
fucking hell.
gremlins, or were they bats?
No,
No,
it was
just actual bats.
Actual
okay.
bats. But it was all inspired by the fact that, so as we know from the film, the gremlins were experimented on because they went into the lab and sort of drunk potions and things.
And then they crossbred them with other species
bats and rats and things like that. Yeah, it's exactly that. So within this game, you've got actual bats, actual spiders, actual rats that sort of jump out of nowhere and attack you. But yeah, Ant's absolutely right. There was absolutely no way that you could avoid the majority of these little side creatures. So you would take damage constantly in order just to advance on the next section. You've got little gremlins that would pop out, little heads of gremlins that would pop out of the floor.
That's
just
right.
Get you. The female gremlin.
By the time you got to her, you had like one bit of health left. And instant death straight away.
She would just sort of latch onto you and just start kissing you, and then that's it, you're dead. She'd kiss you to death. But yeah, I mean, I've got to.
I'm so glad you mentioned it. It's just like I fucking hate that game.
You would literally jump, kill, jump, defeat the boss and repeat, and it just went on and on and on and on and on. And yeah, it wasn't overly a bad game. It didn't suck balls as much as I'm probably making out, but it was just so difficult.
No, it did, dude. It did. It really sucked.
It was a nice looking game, and there was some good music as well. Some of it was slightly tinny and annoying, like you mentioned earlier with some of these games. But there was a little section where it would reward you if you fucking just bash that button.
Yeah, it's like a bonus thing or something.
Yeah, I can never remember exactly what you were trying to get. I think it was an extra life or something like that. But you literally had to get a blister on your finger in order to keep fucking mashing this button. So it's made the list. It just...
Yeah, I was so excited to play the Game Boy version because, again, a friend of mine had the NES version, and I love Gremlins 2 on NES. I don't know if you guys ever played it or not.
No, I never played it.
It was so
this
good.
Killed any enthusiasm for the game.
But
whatsoever.
this is it. Yeah, any Gremlins game that comes out now, bollocks to it.
No, just destroyed my childhood.
That's it. So what's the blockbuster then?
Well, the blockbuster is Donkey Kong 94.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Now, did any of you guys ever play this one?
Yes.
No, I didn't.
Yes. We have discussed previously, I love Donkey Kong.
Yep.
Love Donkey Kong. And so the opportunity to have this on a handheld console.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Again,
And it was pretty good. Like, the graphically and the animations on it were pretty good.
So from the box inwards, everything about it was very, very attractive. And you could put Donkey Kong on literally anything these days and I'll probably buy it. But the artwork on the front of the box, lovely. The graphics within the game itself, nice. So that was the initial draw. So loosely based on the 81 arcade game. And this one also featured Donkey Kong Jr. So the player takes control of Mario, must rescue Pauline. Pauline as discussed, from Donkey Kong. It got a whole sort of overhaul. So it took the original concept of the game, which is great, but it just gave it a nice lick of paint. And I think Mario's absolutely right. It looks gorgeous. I think
it does. It's got Mario as a Mario character,
as an actual Mario.
So they've upscaled the original, have they? Or,
not Jumpman. It's Mario.
It's Mario.
It's Mario, and you're climbing up ladders and you're jumping over barrels that look like barrels. You're actually the Mario sprite climbing up everything. All the girders, all of the kind of construction zone. That's kind of almost. They've given it kind of an angle as well. You've got some sort of depth of height or sense of height on it as well.
Yeah, because it's not just flat. It's there's a slight gradient to it, which absolutely it
gives it this kind of and Donkey Kong at the top looks like not Donkey Kong from the original game, like a brown smear at the top.
Yeah.
Like someone's,
it's just sort of moving arms like that.
Like an animated skid mark. No, this was Donkey Kong.
Get out.
But this was actually Donkey Kong. Like this was him at the top from the old Donkey Kong Country games up the top, like a version of him up the top.
Nice.
Which I think it was a good link to any young kid who didn't know the original Donkey Kong and discovered Donkey Kong Country. It was a good way to access that because you'd be attracted by the fact that the updated graphics and that sort of thing.
I know these people. These characters
it was familiar to you. So there's 4 levels that are directly taken from the original game, and we all know how Donkey Kong goes. You have to bash the barrels, get through the flames in order to get to the top and rescue Pauline. There are now 97 additional stages spanning 9 worlds across this game. Yeah. I never completed it.
You couldn't. It's sped up. The barrels increased.
The
levels themselves, like you just couldn't get past like the turtles and stuff that were climbing.
But I mean, I'm sure like me, you tried and you tried. So there was a total of 101 stages. With the final fight against a larger mutated Donkey Kong.
On the way.
Which I wish
Why
I could
does
see.
he mutate?
I have no idea.
Everyone needs a mecha Donkey Kong.
That's true,
just
Mecha Kong.
Shits and giggles, obviously. But yeah, it was just so addictive, much like the original, just with it pushed it into the 1990s for us. So many years ago.
Well, then you've got that many levels. You want to keep trying it.
Yeah.
Christ. Jesus. God, we're old.
Yeah, dude. It's a nice looking game, great gameplay, and I think one of the things that I liked about it is that when you grab the hammer, Mario would instantly just start bashing the hammer like that, and
actually looked like his hammer.
It did, yeah. And whenever he bashed something, it would go into sort of a slow mo.
They take the mickey out of it on Wreck-It Ralph.
They do
with what's his Fix It? What's his
Fix
name?
It Felix.
Fix It Felix.
Yeah,
and he does the whole shape. And then he starts bashing away with the hammer as he's going towards whatever's coming towards him.
Brilliant.
But,
and every time you had to go towards the ladder to get up to the next platform, the next girder, you would chuck the hammer up in the air, and then you climb up the ladder. You've got to get up the ladder quick enough in order to catch the hammer
again
and bash the next barrel. But yeah, it was a nice game.
It also had a better climb mechanic than the other.
It did.
Because the original was like you had to get it right in the centre of that ladder to get up that ladder, and if you didn't do it, then you would be there for hours until the barrel hit you.
But one of the only annoying things about this one is that you could slightly overshoot the ladder if you didn't time it correctly.
Okay.
If you wanted to hang on to that bloody hammer, you had to get the mechanic just right in order to time it. But I mean, you got used to it. You did it in the end. But it's just brilliant. I mean, I love Donkey Kong. So.
Nice. It had to be on the list, mate. Yeah, I thought it'd be higher the way you spoke about it.
Well, we shall see why.
We'll see. Anything else on Donkey Kong?
Sorry, just take a slow drink. No.
Right, let's go to number 3 then.
Number 3.
Right, my number 3. Let's stick with the 89, 90s era, and let's play Batman on the Game Boy.
Hold on. There were 2 Batman games on the Game Boy.
There were.
Which one is it?
So the Sunsoft one, the first one.
Oh, the first one.
Batman.
So actual Batman.
The actual Batman.
Right,
yes.
okay.
There.
I'm going to listen to this then, because I need to hear why you like it.
Well, I like this. Right, first off, so this was one of the games that I got with it. So obviously every Game Boy console came with Tetris, and this was another one that parents threw in there. So being a big Batman fan at the time, being Keaton fan, all that sort of stuff, I couldn't wait to get this in first. This was the first one, and then obviously you get the little ding Nintendo logo comes up, and then the Batman logo comes in, and it swings around and it slows down, right? Okay, so I'm expecting very much like the original Nintendo game, whatnot. He's going to start jumping, ricocheting off buildings. No, it's my number 3 because Batman has a gun in this game, man. He shoots people.
He does.
And when he jumps, good God, does Batman jump in this game? He freaking floats halfway in the air. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's like he's on...
But it's the Batman mask and then some legs and a tiny little cape.
Tiny little cape, yes.
It's literally like if you sat on Batman, that's what the sprite is in this game.
Yeah.
Like,
this game is essentially Super Mario Land, but with Batman and has a gun. That's all it was.
Gun.
The fact that, and he had different types of guns as well, whatnot. You can shoot certain bricks to get power-ups, whatnot. I believe there was this fucking epic gun where he actually shot bats at people and they came back to him and whatnot. It was frigging good. Obviously, he relives some of the moments from the movie itself. And very much like The Amazing Spider-Man, it had little bits between intermissions, wasn't it, with the animated Joker and stuff, wasn't it, and whatnot.
Some of the kind of freeze frames from the film, or they tried to do.
Didn't they? Yeah. And I just really loved it. This was one of those ones where I was like hooked on the game. This is the one I took into school to try and, because again, we had no memory card, we had no save or anything, so we had to like start from the beginning every time we popped this fucker in. So it was one of those ones where I wanted to try and complete. Still haven't completed to this day, but good God, I just love the fact that this is the first game I've ever played where Batman shoots people and actually kills people, which is what he never actually does in real life.
But
I was just like, I completely forgot that, he's all right, he's just stunning them or something. And he actually full on kills these guys, this one, but that's why I love this one. I'm kind of glad there wasn't anything like to do with the Batmobile missions or anything like that in this one, but again, this is very early in the Game Boy life that this game came out, so
because later on they did in my opinion, a better Batman game in Batman the Animated Series. Where he stands up and he's got the old grappling hook and
that's it,
and the music in the background.
You can actually swing in that one, can't you? Yeah,
and the music in the background is the music from the comic, from the cartoon as well.
Yeah,
so,
the music in this is dog
Batman.
Shit. It's dog shit. It's no Batman or nothing. It's just
not even Prince.
It sounds like a Game Boy knockoff of Hans Zimmer. It's like
they did do a third game of Batman. Was Batman?
Was it Revenge of the Joker?
No, it was Batman Forever.
No, on the Game Boy. No way.
Nobody knows about it. It says the amount.
How good it was.
Yeah, exactly.
No, get out.
No, I'm being serious.
Wow, I need to look at that. That's got to be dog shit.
Yeah, I've absolutely no doubt. Not played it. But there was.
Or maybe we should. Maybe that's what we should do. Rather commentary corner, rather than actually watching a film. We'll sit there
just
and
play that game.
Watch the Game Boy version.
Slag it off.
Yeah.
Oh mate, I'd be well up for that. So yeah, number 3, it's Batman with a gun. I could not say no to that. It had to be in the top 5.
Thomas Wayne. So okay, let's move on then. So mine is the second in the franchise.
Oh, is it really?
And it is, well, not Batman, obviously. It is 6 gold coins, Super Mario Land 2.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the first time on the Game Boy where Mario looks like Mario. And
He did, didn't he?
We discussed this earlier.
A bigger improvement from the first one. Yeah.
So the first one was fun, but it wasn't a Mario game. In my opinion, it wasn't a Mario game. The sprite looks reminiscent of Mario.
Yeah.
The levels are similar format, but they're nowhere near kind of Mario that we kind of got at that stage.
Yeah.
Like we were on to what, Mario 3 at that point, and maybe even Super Mario World I think wasn't too far away from there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You're right. Yes, it was.
Island
Yeah.
and all that. And so you get into this point now where kind of like Mario looks better than the first game that came out, but then the first game was made by the same people that made the Game Boy. So, and it wasn't even like a game designer either. It was the development company, a development branch of Nintendo. So then this comes along, and this is like almost animated to the T. Mario looks like Mario, and he's basically got to defeat Wario.
This new guy that no one's even
ever heard of. Wario's come in, and he's just got to get 6 gold coins. And the thing with this game was it was the first kind of Mario one where you could go backwards in levels. So although you could
choose where you could go, right? Couldn't you?
That was it. From the offset of the game, you could choose on, and it was the island map as well.
Yes.
So you actually got the island map. You could then, which you had a map before that in Super Mario 3, and then on this you had that map, but you could, like you say, you could just go anywhere. You could walk over the maps. You can walk to the end of the map. You could walk to the castles. You could do whatever you wanted to do in any order. And then you had the kind of the mushrooms or the power ups. So you had like the fire one, which put like a feather in his cap and he could do the fireballs. You had the rabbit,
which was exclusive for that game, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yeah. And that was like your flying thing. It was just all round kind of Mario fun, and it looked like Mario. It played like Mario. And it had all the features of Mario as well. Like, and it was at the end of the game, you had the little sequence with the music and the princess, and then up came the credits scene. You know, it was a really enjoyable Mario game. Really easy, but still really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell like it's taken a lot from Super Mario World from the SNES to this, hasn't it? And like you said, what compared to Super Mario Land 1 to 2, a massive like graphic upgrade and everything, wasn't it? It's just,
And it took on that thing that I don't know why they did it with the Game Boy, but you had 3 options to save your game at the start.
Yes, it's 3 different files, wasn't it?
So you could choose 3, so file A, file B, file C. So I don't know why they did 3. Why you couldn't?
It's quite a short game, wasn't it?
It really was. Like you just needed 1, but then I was never going to share my game. I was never going to share my Game Boy. So like, the 3 files, I only needed 1. Like I'm not going to share it with anyone. But yeah, it was such a good game.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Do you feel like it was an easy game for them to release because they were coming off of the back of Super Mario Land? Like you said, the graphics were vastly superior. It
was such a logical game. Yeah. It really was. It like once they'd worked out what the Game Boy could produce, let's produce a well kind of rounded and polished Mario game. Not that the first game isn't enjoyable, but this one had the same sort of stuff as the first game, but better, way better.
Yeah.
Your screen size, rather than... So Mario was really small in the first game. Like really
he's
small.
proper Diddy in that, isn't he? Yeah.
And the blocks are tiny. There's loads of secrets. Yeah. You don't have an extra life mushroom in the first Mario game. Because in every other...
not?
No, because in every other game, it's green. And you can't choose a green mushroom in that first Super Mario
Of course
Land.
you can't, yeah.
So there's no 1-up mushroom, so that's why you have so many coins on those levels.
So the most 100 gives you an extra. Yeah, that makes sense now.
That's it.
That's a definite.
But in the second one as well, like you had kind of mini games and stuff like that.
That's
as
right.
Well, and the mushroom power up huts and stuff like that were introduced as well. It had that whole Mario vibe from Mario Land 3, and then or Super Mario 3, and then from Super Mario World as well coming into that. It was the closest to getting a SNES Mario game on a Game Boy.
On a Game Boy. Absolutely, sir.
Definitely.
Damn good pick.
Thank you very much.
Howard, over to number 3, Ball Sucker.
Yeah. Ball Sucker number 3. From 1991 comes Home Alone. Did any of you play it?
I played the Mega Drive version.
They were never good.
They weren't good.
As bad as this piece of shit. So it's... I don't know what you really want me to say about it. It's a side scroller. You play as Kevin McAllister, the eternally annoying Macaulay Culkin. Evade the wet bandits, gather valuables, dump them down a laundry chute, bash bandits with traps. That's all I can really write about this.
It's that bad.
4 levels that I could not be bothered to complete. Now,
is that all it is?
That's
Just
4 levels. Yeah, but
is it 4 really long levels? Or is
It's 4 long levels of mundane nothingness.
Wow.
You fight bosses at the end. So the first boss is a spider, then a giant rat, then a giant ghost. Then you fight the bandits.
Oh, so it's just like the film.
It's just like the film.
Exactly
like the film. And after you've defeated the wet bandits, you then have to go on to fight the furnace, the actual furnace.
Shut up.
Yeah, because in the film...
It scared him, didn't it?
It scared him in the film, yeah. So,
it actually is an enemy in the game.
But it moves about as well.
It scares him for about 5 minutes until he meets the Pigeon Man, and the Pigeon Man says, just face your fears.
That's
and eventually
right, yeah.
he's like,
the wise old
it's
Pigeon
just
Man.
a furnace.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's absolutely...
I can't believe the furnace is as a boss in the game. It's fucking... they were really scraping the barrel, weren't they?
Sounds like it should be a Nightmare on Elm Street game.
It's all right.
Well, it very possibly could have been. Basically, you are Kevin, and you have to move about the house from room to room. You'd sort of raid the drawers, and you look for your parents' valuables, and you'd sort of rescue the valuables, and then you find the nearest chute, the laundry chute, down to the basement. You dump all the stuff down there, and then it would all go into a vault. And that was it. And you'd be armed with a little water pistol or a catapult, and you just keep firing pellets or water at the wet bandits. You couldn't kill them. It wasn't that sort of game. So every time you went into a room with a bandit, shoot him with a catapult or a water pistol, he would sort of duck, and then you jump over him and go to the next room.
It gives you like a window to escape, isn't it? Slows him down, sort of thing, doesn't it? Yeah.
He's sort of crouching into himself, and then you jump over and you go to the next room. I mean, it was boring as hell. But
it sounds really challenging.
It was, yeah. I used 2 brain cells. It was just one of those ones that you just play because you had it, you bought it, you had it, you felt you had to play it, and it went on and on and on and on. But I literally, no word of a lie, I could not be bothered to complete it.
It doesn't sound like it needed to be.
No, it didn't need to be. No, you do the first level and you're like, that's it.
I think it sounds like you got the gist from the movie just from the first level, so yeah.
That's the movie on the first one.
I suppose
So what's the other 3?
The only interesting thing about it is that you would figure out how to activate traps if there was a wet bandit.
At certain times and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And there'd be like a bowling ball on a shelf, so you would have to jump on something to knock something off to move the bowling ball and drop it on the head of one of the bandits. That was about the most interesting thing about this game.
Okay, so what's the blockbuster then?
A blockbuster.
What beats Home Alone?
Home Alone 2.
The Search for Boredom. WWF Superstars.
What? No way.
I never played.
I never played it.
No, because I thought it was going to be a shitter version that was on the SNES, so I never played it.
No, I never played it either.
Loved. Oh, guys,
is it great?
I love this game. So you would either play as Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, the Ultimate Warrior, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, or Mr. Perfect. It was brilliant. It was such a simple game. I think what made it for me, and I mentioned it earlier with the Spider-Man game, but there was little interludes in between the wrestlers. So depending on who you picked, let's say you picked Mr. Perfect, and it would come up with his theme music. And it obviously wasn't advanced enough to have entry to the ring and all that sort of thing, but you'd have a little bit of blurb where Mr. Perfect would slag off the $1 Million Man, the $1 Million Man would slag off Mr. Perfect, and it was just like real life. Yeah, just like Saturday afternoons. And then you would instantly get into the action. So these 2 little sprites would sort of run across the ring, but you could make them bounce off of the ropes. You could jump on and off of the turnbuckle. You could do all sorts of moves. I mean, I've got the movesets here. It would consist of Attack moves like punch and kick, a body slam, grappling moves.
All out of 2 buttons.
Yeah, pole driver, suplex, headlock with punches, ground attack moves, so an elbow or a knee drop, the Irish whip, clothesline, a drop kick, and flying turnbuckle moves, so like an elbow or
That's
or a
not
knee
bad
drop.
for an A and B button.
No, exactly.
It sounds like a luck of the draw. Like you hit the button and hope for the move.
Well, there was a bit of button mashing. Don't get me wrong. In order to find the right combination in order to get it, but once you realise what it was, you'd use it all the time. But yeah, for what you perceive as such a simple game, it was actually quite complicated to complete. And I think this is probably one of the most played games of my entire life. I mean, I was always Hulk Hogan.
Of course.
And you get the 10.
I was always Ultimate Warrior. If I was going to play anything, I was an Ultimate Warrior fan.
I mean, he's a bit old hat now, but I was always a Hogan fan. And you get the 8-bit version of all of their theme tunes. Now, interestingly, interesting fact.
Oh, sorry.
The 8-bit version of Real American is still my ringtone to this day.
No way!
Amazing.
Oh, amazing.
Before every match.
I can't believe that's still around. Someone's loaded it up.
Oh
and
yeah,
you
it's
able to download it. Yeah.
if you're on, I don't know about
Come on,
Android,
like
but
the old Sony Ericsson, we used to have to key it in.
Yes, I remember that.
Somebody somewhere has got to have like keyed it in and then chosen.
Must be the
those
case.
Brilliant. He had little promos. You cut away to promos, and following the match, Vince McMahon would appear, and then he'd give his little sort of 2 bits on what.
Don't know if we can mention that name anymore.
Banned. No, I love it. It was great. Just a fab little game.
I can't imagine a wrestling game being great on a Game Boy, but wow.
It was done to the degree where it wasn't just 2 little stick men moving about the screen. You actually had a playable character that you could move to the 4 corners of the ring and actually do stuff with, and I really loved it.
But going back into it, like you were saying, it was a button basher. Did any of you ever wear out the buttons on your Game Boys?
Not my one, no.
Not on my original.
Not on your original.
Not on the original.
So, and then when you get a Switch, have any of you experienced? It might be a personal problem.
The drifting.
Joy-Con drift.
Yes, I have.
So I've had 4 controllers that have all suffered Joy-Con drift.
Yeah.
My Game Boy outlasted all of them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Even the screen outlasted.
It's because it comes from a time where it was built to last.
It's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Did you ever change the screens on your Game Boys?
No,
I added stuff to the screen, but I never changed it.
Because I remember like cracking the screen, and you could buy replacement screens.
Really?
Yeah.
You
could buy, and it literally just pried out. And
did it really?
Yeah, there was no real glue as such. It was like almost like sticky back tape or something, and you could put your Game Boy. You could put a custom Game Boy screen in.
Oh wow!
Anyway, side note. Sorry, guys.
Mine was probably scratched the buggery of the screen, but never changed.
That was the thing, because I think they were plastic. They weren't glass; they were plastic.
They were like plexi, yeah.
And so you could buy replacement screens for them.
They still do that to this very day. Those mods.
Wow!
But they do more mods, so you can buy new controller boards for them, where you just transfer all the old chips and stuff onto the boards, and the new boards have got backlights.
Oh, no way!
Somebody's actually thought about it.
It spoils the fun.
A little bit, changing the angle.
Fucking Joy-Con drift. I can't stand
I know, but it just dawned on me, like, you're smashing those buttons, the A and B buttons, track and field style, putting your thumb in your sleeve and just running it backwards and forwards until... at no point did you ever lose contact with them. At no point did they...
Never had an issue with the D-pad and buttons, nothing.
And when you take it apart, what's inside? A rubber pad with some metallized bits on the bottom and a printed circuit board. No switches, no mechanical parts. It is just, and it worked, and it was really
and it still
good.
went on to say, nice. Well, I can't believe you didn't break that.
Durable piece of kit.
It was, wasn't it?
Anything else on WWF Superstars?
No, I recommend a play because you've got to experience it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love my wrestling, so I'll be well up for that. Good. Where were we? Number 2s. Let's do this.
Number 2.
All right, my number 2 is going to be the obvious and probably on everyone's list, so I'm just going to throw it out there. It's Tetris at the end of the day. Tetris is like the be-all, end-all Game Boy game, apart from my number 1, of course. But again, this came with the console. Everyone played it. My dad, I can never beat my dad at this game ever. I think he's like a Tetris champion. You always say, Howard, you're a Mario Kart guy. So you're unbeatable. I think my dad is unbeatable at Tetris. I can't beat you. Going back to the link cable, I even had to borrow someone else's Game Boy, so me and him can have a fight against it, one-on-one, whatnot. But Tetris is big. It's like it still goes today. It gets remade today. It's even got a movie out now as well.
Yeah, I need to see that.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's quite still huge to this day. I mean, I believe there was a really good version of it on the N64, a Tetris Sphere, I think it was called, something like that.
Never
it was
played it.
Never like, oh mate, it was fucking awesome. Brilliant
And
game.
Now it's changed. Like you got Tetris Battle, you got Tetris.
Yeah, so many different iterations of it, isn't there? I do believe there was a Tetris 2.
There was Tetris 2 on the Game Boy.
It was on the Game Boy, wasn't it?
And there was another Tetris game on the Game Boy as well, and Tetris Blast, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Which was like, as you got your lines, they would explode, and then around it, the blocks would disappear that way as well.
Yeah, they need to have like a commentary, and they're like 5 lines. That'd be well cool.
Yeah, it was, there was a game that I used to like that was very similar mechanic called Poco, I think it was, on the Switch.
Okay.
And it changes between Tetris, Dr. Mario style game, and what happens is like, so you could, if you're playing
all in one.
Yeah, but it flips during the game.
Okay.
So like if you're playing this Poco, which is like Dr. Mario, like you have to get the right dots together to make the thing.
Okay.
If you get so many in a row, it changes the screen of your opponent. So if you're playing 2-player in the room, so on the same screen, if you get 3 rows or whatever it is, it will change their screen. So it will go from Poco that they're playing to Tetris and add lines. And then they've got to get the lines to then knock down your...
It's totally like throw your game off. You're like, oh, I'm used to playing this now. It's going to be a different game completely.
And it does it, and you can do it. So it like just keeps changing. So like if you get lucky, you can change. So the player doesn't even have a chance to think. But that was using that Tetris mechanic. And it's so... Tetris mechanic is what, 4 blocks, 5 shapes?
5 shapes, isn't it?
5 shapes. Genius.
And is it 4 or 5 lines you have to get the Tetris sound? I can't remember.
4.
It is 4. But yeah, if anyone doesn't know what Tetris is and you've been living under a rock this last, 40 years or so, it's literally just different shapes of blocks you have to put together to try and create a full line out of it. It sounds really easy, but trust me, it gets faster, harder. I don't think I can get past level 9 personally myself, but...
I think I possibly could, but it's one of those games. You said about your father being like the absolute master.
Yeah.
There was the theory that is it an infinite game? Can it go on forever?
No, so there is an ending to the game.
Someone beat it, didn't they, recently or something?
So not recently. So it's been beaten several times, but recently it's been beaten by the youngest person to beat it.
The youngest, that's right. Okay,
and then the oldest person to beat it was like years and years and years ago. But this is on exactly the same point on mine. It's number 2 on my list as well.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. But the game itself, like, it wasn't supposed to be packaged with a Game Boy.
Oh, right.
It wasn't?
It wasn't, no. So Super Mario was, because it was developed by the guys that made the Game Boy, was supposed to be the one packaged. And this was a last-minute addition, and it's a franchised game. It's not even owned by Nintendo. It's franchised from this guy. I haven't seen the film, but I get the gist of the film is about how they got this guy and Russia to franchise Tetris as a game.
That's right, because the main title screen's like of the Kremlin or something, isn't it?
It's using like a Russian-ish kind of...
the famous Tetris
and actually,
thing,
isn't his name mentioned in the credits?
Yes.
It's a game by...
I can't remember his name, something... and the game itself is like, it's genius. Like, I can't remember what Tetris is supposed to stand for, but it's to do with the blocks and stuff, and Tetris is like math and stuff. I can't remember now.
Wow. It is a pseudonym sequence of tetramino shapes composed of 4 square blocks each, and they all fall down the playing field, which is 10 blocks wide by 18 blocks high. Tetramino.
There we go.
Thanks, John.
I think it's I know. Sorry about that. But he's not here, so
it's a bollocks to him.
Hey, at least I did the research. I'm not looking on Google.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh,
I can't play Game Boy. I've got a keyboard, that's it.
I'm too fucking old. Where does the mouse go?
He's so going to be listening to this as well.
This has actually been called one of the most addictive computer games this side of the Berlin Wall, and it was quoted as not the game to start if you have work to do or an appointment to keep.
It's true, but it's the unifier, isn't it? The game that was the Game Boy unifier.
Yeah,
that was the one that. So with the Wii, you have Wii Sports. That's the one that everyone played at the family. You know, bowling or whatever. This was the unifier for the Game Boy. This was the one where the first time ever your family wanted to play it. Like,
yes,
it was the only game my mum played until Brain Training, and that's not really a game, is it? But it was the first game that everybody could pick up and play. Like, you moved the blocks left and right, you pressed the buttons to change their orientation, and you just had to get them to fit in the slot.
Yeah.
It was challenged you, it got faster, or it would start halfway up, and the 2-player, they got a line, you got a line. You know, they managed to just get rid of the line, you got a line. They got the Tetris, your lines would jump up, and then it would speed up towards the end.
And it would show you the next block that's come up next, doesn't it?
Yeah, it showed you the next block, and then the orientation it was going to come down as well, because it was never the same orientation. So you could almost, in your head, think a move ahead, which sometimes was to my detriment, but also like you could speed it up by pressing down on the controls.
That's right, yeah, if you wanted it done quicker, wasn't it?
And if you could speed run it, you could get it down quite quick and get it all over.
That was confidence that allowed you to do that.
Yeah, and also having good hand-eye coordination, because the problem I had playing it multiplayer was I wouldn't move the shape all the way to the gap, so I then bring it down and be like, oh crap.
Okay, yeah.
now
you message strike at the bottom. Oh fuck!
I've just blocked off every effort I had of beating this person. Now I've got to rebuild 4 lines to get rid of the crap that I've just created. But it was a unifying game. Like, it was a genius game, and it's so simple. And go on.
Still so popular to this day.
As I say, it's on the phones now.
Yeah.
It's on PC. Everything. It's just it's crazy
It's such a great and simple product that just delivers. Like,
genius.
You can play it forever.
It's one of the ultimate 2-player games as well, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially for the handheld at times. So.
Yeah, and being that you had a link cable and you had to sit next to the person rather than, miles away from that person.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that was good about it was getting a dead arm, because every time you got a Tetris or something, the person would stand next to you and just punch you in the arm.
Because you hear the specific Tetris sound.
That's it, yeah. And then they hit you, and then you carry on playing, and then you get Tetris, and they'd hit you again, or you get Tetris, and I
think this has to be the second best game to come out of Russia. Next to
Russia,
please.
Nice. But yeah. As I say, granddaddy of Game Boy games, so it has to be on there. But yeah, not my number one. We'll come to later. That was your 2 as well?
That was my 2 as well, yeah.
Nice. Anything else on it, sir?
No, I think I waxed lyrical on that one.
Nice. So let's go to Howard's Ballsucker number 2.
Ballsucker is Blues Brothers.
There's a Blues Brothers game. Get out.
Yeah, there is. I don't know why they made this. Yeah,
there is a sequel. I didn't play the sequel.
I didn't know the sequel existed.
Well, I mean, much like many of the games on the Ballsucker list, I love the film or the IP that it comes from, and that's the initial draw of every single one of these. And I think it's just a bitter disappointment that these games have ended up on this list, because
it's a bitter disappointment that they tried to turn a film like the Blues Brothers into a game.
Yeah.
It did not work on it.
I can't even imagine what type of game it would be.
It's
to
a
be
platform.
Honest.
So you can play as Jake or Elwood, and you're just platforming your way to get to the gig, basically.
Right.
And you're evading policemen and vigilantes.
I was waiting for you to say they were avoiding music notes or something.
Or
it's
nuns.
sort of about
It's vicious nuns.
Vicious nuns. Yes, of course.
Carrie Fisher.
with the rocket launcher.
I was going to say Princess Leia with a rocket launcher.
Yeah. One of the only reasons we watched that film. There are 6 levels, and they all look exactly the same. And I'm not joking; they all look exactly the bloody same. All of the cops look the same. All of the vigilantes look the same. There was no thought that went into this game whatsoever.
Like a quick cash grab.
Yeah, literally.
Sort of thing,
the only 2 actions that the Blues Brothers can do are jump or pick up a box and throw it. And then you pick up a box. Yeah, and that is literally it. So you jump to avoid bullets, and you just pick up the box and throw it at cops. And I mean, there's slight things that you can do where you can jump on a travelator, you can jump on a platform that moves up and down, but all you're doing is at the end of each level you're trying to find the musical instrument of the level, so like a guitar or a drum set or something like that, in order to put together the
band back
together.
You're
not even putting the band back together, you're just getting their instruments.
It
was boring as fuck.
So seeing as the movie's a musical, how was the music in the game?
Well, that was the only one good thing that I really liked about this game, was the electronic arrangement of the Peter Gunn theme.
Nice.
Yeah, and it wasn't that bad, and they actually managed to pull it off, but the rest of the game just sucked.
Suck balls.
It was just boring. So boring.
They don't even use captions or anything from the film as such, other than the characters. There's not even, if I remember correctly, there's not even kind of like catchphrases.
There's nothing. There's nothing whatsoever. I mean, the sprites of the Blues Brothers are one of the nicest thing about the graphics. That's about it. That and the theme tune, but the piece of music. But yeah, other than that, it was boring. I've bored myself talking about it.
So what's the blockbuster then?
Tetris.
Of course. Hey! It's all on number twos, though. It's weird how we really highly rated it, but
film,
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I think I know what everybody's number one is, or it's going to be very close. I mean, the only thing that I can really add when I was doing my John type research for this. So, does anybody remember the song, the sort of remix piece of music that came out called Tetris? Can you?
Was it in the 90s or something? It came out. Yeah.
It was a collaboration between a producer and a composer, and it was under the pseudonym of Dr. Spin. When it was Andrew Lloyd Webber and English record producer Nigel Wright. Yeah, composition based on the theme of the 1989 Game Boy game, which itself is based on the Russian folk song Korobeniki. So the actual piece of music is a real piece of music.
It's a real thing. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I looked it up on YouTube. It's not very good. It's just a sped up piece of.
I remember it being on like Top of the Pops, that song. Or something. Yeah, I swear it was.
The most interesting thing about that was the fact that it was Andrew Lloyd Webber, which was a complete curveball because
like, out of nowhere,
absolutely no idea.
That's got to have been a cash grab for him. I know
totally. Yeah.
I mean, I know he probably had cats, but before they had bum holes.
Maybe he's a massive Tetris fan. Maybe.
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 Yeah.
Who knows?
He should have put it into one of his shows. That'd been well good. Like the Phantom starts playing Tetris all of a sudden.
It sounds like wait.
1 second.
No, bugger. Wait, no, hang on a minute.
So good.
There's nothing I can add to that. We've literally.
I'm surprised you didn't join in. You wanted to join a little bit.
I know. I thought I'll save my little fact tech for that.
Oh, nice. Nothing else on Tetris?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's do final ones.
It's number one.
Right, my number one's already been said. Thank you, Mario.
Welcome.
So my number one is Super Mario Land 2 and the Lost Golden Coins.
Hey.
I really do love this game. Pretty much I'm going to mirror what Mario said, but this is one where I felt that the Game Boy was coming back into the sort of limelight. So when this game was coming out, there were adverts and everything for it, and it was huge at the time, and it would be like a big picture of Wario and be like, obey me, Wario, I am now your enemy and everything.
There's an animated sequence of it all.
Absolutely, it was so good.
Have you ever seen the Japanese advert for it?
No, I haven't.
I advise you to go and watch it.
All right, okay. I'm interested now.
Knowing it's Japanese,
it's amazing.
Scary.
But yeah,
it's like one woman in a crowd with a Game Boy, and then the ship comes over, and there's Wario going,
I got you now. But again, we're going back to the fact that this is a completely new character that we're all not familiar with, because we're always thinking that it's Bowser. It's, he's stolen Princess Peach once again. Now, this is literally a guy who's now an evil version of Mario. And I remember like plugging this in, and as soon as you play the game, you go up to the castle, and it's all like dark, dingy. You got the lightning bolts, whatnot, and you can't get in. You need 6 golden coins to get in. And pretty much what Mario says, you go to these specific parts to go to collect a golden coin. So there's a forest zone, there's a haunted house, there's a water zone and whatnot. With each specific different boss at the end. I love the bosses in this. They are really good. I mean, obviously very easy, aren't they? So
what was it? 3 jumps on their head.
That's all it was. Just literally 3 jumps.
2 jumps, they get a little bit faster, maybe move at an angle rather than straight lines. But yeah, essentially it is. It made Mario more accessible to those that were young as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it made it easier, but it was still just as much fun.
Yeah, I mean, and when you defeat the boss, obviously it's the very big, like in Super Mario. Mario 64, when the big star comes out, it was like a massive coin, and you go there and you add it to the thing. And, I've only got one more to go. I just loved it, man. It was one of those things where I was hooked to my Game Boy, and I needed to do this.
Each level as well, like the boss had a feature. So, do you remember the space one?
Yes, so you jumped so high, wouldn't you?
And you slowed down as you descended.
That's right, yes. I was a moon, of course it was. You're right, yes. And it had all those spikes, so you couldn't get your spacesuit punctured or anything, whatnot. Again, it's just. I still have my copy of it to this day. I don't own the Game Boy, but this is literally the only game for my Game Boy I still have. I don't have the box of it. I still have, do you remember when the game came? It came with the plastic case that goes with it. It's still in that at the moment. But yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. My favourite all time had to be this game. I spent donkeys, hours of it, like going back into the harder mode and try and do it even harder. I just absolutely loved it. It was just, because Game Boy at the time was very quiet for what it was. We had the Super Nintendo, we had the Mega Drive at the time, and we were going into the PS1 sort of phase near enough, weren't we? We heard
almost,
about these new consoles, didn't we?
But it was almost like the poor man's, or thought of as the poor man's handheld, because you had at that time, and it wasn't long after the Game Boy was released, you had Game Gear, you had your Atari
Which was
Lynx,
all in colour and everything, wasn't it? Yeah.
Atari Lynx, the
Atari Lynx, of course.
TurboGrafx, which I never ever saw in the wild.
I never did, no.
Probably because it cost the same, or probably double the Atari Lynx, because I remember the Atari Lynx was like...
Isn't it like another PC or some sort of...
So the TurboGrafx handheld was kind of... Yeah, TurboGrafx, it was a PC console thing.
Yeah.
It was one of the first kind of Steambox, I suppose, style things, but without like you downloaded games, you had them on cartridge or disc. But they had a TurboGrafx handheld, which was very similar to all the others.
Yeah.
But the Game Boy was like it won all. It does what the Switch does.
Yeah.
It's a cheaper version of the others that does gameplay really well.
Yeah.
But think about it. Without the Game Boy, you wouldn't have all of those other.
No, this is true.
Absolutely
consoles,
right.
would you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the one that started it. But no, like I said, it was just the fact that I used to love watching adverts as a kid, and because there'll be video game or movie adverts, whatnot, and then all of a sudden this random game for the Game Boy, all of a sudden, a nice little comeback for him, and I think I really do love the front cover for this box as well. It's like one of my favourite cover arts.
Super Mario across the back, him on the front in the rabbit,
rabbits, yes.
Yeah. And then you've got like the castle landscapes just below him, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
So good.
And also a couple of the bosses in the background as well. I just love the fact that we mentioned the bunny thing as well was exclusive to the Game Boy. It was essentially the same power as the raccoon from Mario 3, I believe, but just, the more you tapped it, the more you glided longer, wasn't it, sort of thing?
And the only thing that this game had that was a little bit disappointing was slowdown. Because if you had too many things on the screen at once...
That's right. The frame rate dipped, didn't it? Or something
massively.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it didn't actually stop you playing. It didn't freeze.
No.
It just slowed down. But it was such a good game.
Yeah.
Such a good game.
I'm glad it's in your list. I cannot deny. I freaking love this. Has to be my number one. So, yeah. Super Mario Land 2.
Well, on that theme then... You bastard stole my number one.
Yours, I'm so sorry.
So my number one is DuckTales.
Yeah, it's number one. Wow. Yeah. It beats Tetris.
It beats Tetris because I just love playing it. I played it more than Tetris, which is weird to say because Tetris was the first game you got. But I played it more than Tetris, and it was the go-to game because it was so... It was a platformer, yes. Did you jump on your enemies' heads? Yes. Did you go to different lands? Yes. But... The mechanics in that, like going from mirrors, in the mirrors would zoom you to different areas, but also, so one of the ideas was you were just getting richer was the idea of the game.
Yeah.
Like you just collected all your treasures and kept collecting more and more treasures and getting richer and richer and richer. But the secrets in there were just so easy to find. Like you jump on something, it would break away underneath you, or you get a villain to kind of chase you somewhere. I can't remember, is it Gadget Duck or something? I can't remember now, but one of them,
Gizmo Duck, wasn't there? Yeah.
That's it. Gizmo Duck would come along and he'd shoot something at you, and it would open up a completely new passage.
The moon.
It
comes out. Yeah,
it was almost like a monowheel that he was on in a RoboCop
that's
suit.
It. Yes.
And he would come out and do that, and then of course you had Launchpad that you'd meet up with Launchpad, and Launchpad would go, "Do you want to go back to the house? We can go back to the house."
Wasn't there a level where you have to jump on his helicopter and he takes you to the other side or something?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It takes you to another island.
That's it.
And then and all the little nuances like the jump in the snow and you freeze, and if you stay on the spot too long, you freeze, and it was like the closest to the NES graphics at that time as well.
Yeah.
And it was out, if I remember correctly, it was out before Super Mario, so it was the closest you'd actually had to a smart looking game, a game that looked familiar on other consoles, and it just brought it up. And I played it so much. Like I said, my cousin got this game, and for a little while we lived with my nan, who lived next door to my cousins, and I would constantly sneak in there and swap out the game to play something.
Nice.
Just so that, because we had between our houses there was like open house thing, so we'd just walk in, they'd leave the Game Boy on the side, just take that, shall I? And off I go and play
it's
it.
all right.
It just hours and hours of fun, and the secrets in it as well. Like just like the Mario games, you could go down sides of levels, above levels, into
go through see-through walls and stuff. Wasn't there?
There were grates that looked like walls, but actually they turned out to be like just a shield or cover that you could just walk through. It was so good.
Wasn't there like a thing? Obviously, you used the pogo stick to like break
blocks,
stuff.
yep.
But then wasn't there one where you can stand next to it and like hit
You
them
can
on the side or
so
something?
you can
or
hit objects and they would slide along the level, or you could hit blocks and you could keep hitting them until they broke. But if you tried to use the stick to hit an enemy, it didn't work. You had to jump on their heads.
On them.
They just walk through the stick. So, but yeah, you had that thing
because you can flick rocks up at the
That's right, and you could hit
insects at the top or something.
You could hit chests as well. So in order to open the chest, you had to get it near something, and you could hit the chest, slide it along a level, then slide it back another way until eventually it would reach where you needed to be near a key or something, and you could open it up and get what was inside. Yeah, it's such a good game.
Nice. And then I remember that there was like a minecart level. I can't remember what level it was actually on, but
yes,
do you remember? And you had to duck down when certain things. And he literally duck and DuckTales.
But this was the thing as well. When you opened up the game, it played the DuckTales theme tune in that 8-bit kind of beepy noise, and it was that was the only decent music on that entire thing.
It was, yeah.
It was that opening theme. But it was so good. I did say, like, it was one of those games where you might solve a mystery or rewrite history.
Nice.
But it's such a good game. Such a good game.
I'm sorry I stole it from you, sir.
No, that's fine. It's fine. I stole your number one.
It's a good pick. Yeah, we're even now. We're even.
We're done.
So let's hear Howard's
the ball
clashes
sucker.
with us now.
Yeah,
well, I'm hoping it doesn't clash with a ball sucker. Let me guess. Alien 3, yeah?
You must.
Bugger. No, it is in fact Navy SEALs.
I remember this. Yes.
Well, so the story behind this one is that we watched, as kids, Navy SEAls once.
Yes.
And then
we all thought we wanted to be Navy
we all
SEALs.
had to play it.
No, I wasn't particularly interested in it at the time. And then this game just sort of materialised out of nowhere. And it was either, I can't remember, boy, it was my mum or my dad. And we went, we put you Navy SEALs because you watched the film. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ.
Always reminds me of Clerks, that does. Ooh, Navy SEAls.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could probably write the plot of Navy SEALs on the back of a stamp. And that's exactly what they based the game on. So you play as Lieutenant Dale Hawkins in a side-scroll and beat-em-up. Now, I think from memory, Dale Hawkins was played by Charlie Sheen.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously Charlie Sheen.
So he's hunting out lots of...
Tiger blood.
Yeah, tiger blood, prostitutes, and cocaine.
I mean, a big star at the time, Charlie Sheen. So obviously this game had high hopes. It did not deliver. You needed to recover caches of hidden Stinger missiles from Arab terrorists in Oman.
So 80s.
So 80s.
So 80s,
and, a little bit borderline racist because all of the Arab terrorists looked like Arabs.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Every single sprite looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
The gameplay was the same. The sprites were the same. The levels were the same. The idea was the same. It was
just cashing on the popularity of the Navy
yeah,
SEALs
literally,
at the time,
yeah. And 5 levels that just, my God, I think I would rather have teeth extracted because it took forever to get to the end of each level. I never completed it. Again, one of the most boring games known to man. I just couldn't be arsed with it. Locate and place bombs on Stinger missiles and escape before the timer counts down. It's literally that simple.
It sounds like it should be a good game.
It was
but
not.
It's not. Yeah.
It was not. And the graphics were boring. And you, as soon as you walked into one of the Arab characters, one of the little sprites, you would die.
Well, instantly.
Oh,
wow.
I think you had about 5 lives, but yeah, you would die within 3 minutes. Walk into a character, die. Get shot, die. Look at somebody, die.
Just like the real
Start
life.
the game up,
just
die.
like real life, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's just like the real Navy. No. Look at the enemy die.
I'm not going to talk about this game. I mean, it's made number 1 on the list because it is so
for a reason
dull. Do not even go near it. Don't go near it.
Was it just like was there other versions of it? Do you know, or was it just?
I remember it being big box. Wasn't it like a PC game?
I think it started out life as a PC game, and then it ported across to other consoles. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately,
just
I
stay away.
experienced it on this, and it's toxic. It's horrible.
That's what it should have been. Top 5 toxic.
The music is shite as well. So
wow. So what overthrew it with
nothing good to say about
the
this.
blockbuster?
I never played Super Mario Land 2, and I never played Super Mario Land 3.
You played Super Mario Land,
I
didn't
played
you?
Super Mario Land.
Nice.
Yeah. it's the.
So was you holding it in every time he was dissing this? And you're like biting your lip.
No, he wasn't dissing it. He was simply saying that it was recreated and made better with each iteration.
Yeah, this is the same as the NES Super Mario. Like if you play the first NES Super Mario, it's like watching Lego crawl across the screen.
It was.
And if you play Super Mario, I kind of dismiss 2 because it's not really the same format. The graphics are better, but if you go straight to 3 then changes it. It's available on. I think it was available on the NES, and it was the NES, and it changes the graphics, the way that it moves, and this paved the way for the other games.
It did, and that's the point. It's the progenitor for 2 games that you've put on your list, which you prefer inverted commas, but they have just got better with each iteration.
Yeah.
And this is one of those games I will add to that list of I cannot be beaten at Super Mario Land because I think it's one of those games.
Speed run as well.
I was going to say speed run.
You can go through it.
And I could play it in one hit without dying.
I remember there was like a cool submarine level in that.
There is.
And that was one of the nice little things about this game because you would play. You had a little biplane.
There's a plane, of course, there
and
was
a little submarine, and you would shoot out whatever.
But I remember the submarine
missiles.
one. The screen moved, so you had to get down and up by a certain time limit or something.
And you would grow or shrink.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it with the submarine one, I think, because you're in the submarine, you'd be shooting stuff anyway.
That's right,
It was, but it was such a nice little addition to the Mario format that we knew. And I think also, it paved the way for games like Donkey Kong Country, where you swim and you get on the back of things, and it created the idea for that. But I absolutely adored this game.
It was one of the reasons that I got a subscription to the Nintendo Power magazine because I can't remember which level it was.
It had a player's guide to it, didn't it?
It had an entire issue of how to get past this one series.
I remember. I think the front cover of it was the cover of the box of the game.
It was, yes. Yeah. And then like you opened up and there was like a couple of adverts, a couple of this, and then the rest was level by level by level by level
through the whole thing.
And then the following month's one, was now you can do this instead, and it was like you go to the left. Jump, there's a block, jump on top of the block, and then you run across the top of the level.
That's
right. But upon discovery of that, it was like, you discovered porn or drugs. It literally changed your life.
It did, yeah. That changed your speed runs totally. It did, done. That's the level. Next one.
I am the master. This introduced the idea of going outside of the Mushroom Kingdom. We were introduced to Sarasaland.
It was like an Egyptian theme, wasn't it?
It was.
Each level was based on a country, wasn't it?
It was. Each one was different. I think the first one was the Egyptian.
It was,
I have not played this in retrospect for this podcast, unfortunately. But I'm just going off memory. But
there's a weird one called Chailand.
Chailand,
which is I can't think where that would be. Obviously, you've got the water one. You've got one that's a little bit. I can't really. It doesn't really place anywhere. It's like almost like Incan, but not really Incan.
I think a lot of them are amalgamations of historical countries, weren't they? Where they'd mash it together in order to create it. But you kind of knew what the origins of this particular little land was meant to be. So you had 12 levels across 4 worlds.
Yep.
Sarasaland, rescue Princess Daisy, first introduced in this game.
I got it wrong.
And defeat Tatanga, who was the evil spaceman. So, no Bowser.
Again.
God, there isn't, is there?
No.
But it wasn't... So this was also the first game that... I can't remember the creator of Mario's name. It's not Miyamoto, is it? That's something.
Shigeru Miyamoto.
It is Miyamoto. It was the first game that he didn't do because of Mario, because he was off doing Link's Awakening. Not Link's Awakening. What's the? It was Link to the Past.
Oh yes, okay, yeah.
So he was off doing that and designing the other Mario games for the new console that was coming out, and had kind of gone, it's not really my thing because he didn't think the Game Boy would be a success.
No,
and so he left this, and this was Studio One. R&D one, which is the Nintendo in-house
research and development.
Yeah,
right.
And they built the Game Boy, and then they built this specifically for the Game Boy.
Right.
And then they went on to do a few more games as well, but this was like their first game, which is why it was going to be packaged with the Game Boy originally. And instead, you got Tetris.
Because I'm remembering now that some of the bosses were themed to what country it was meant to be, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
And it was nice. It made it different. But yeah, so he was totally hands off on this, handed it over to them based on the fact that he didn't believe that it was going to be a product that was going to work, which is why it was similar but different.
Yeah.
It had that different aspect and that different mechanic to it. But that was part of the charm for me, I think, because where I'd played the NES ones to death, and then you had this, and it was giving a slightly different dimension to it. So, rather interestingly...
And I'm trying to find it. There we go. Because I swapped the buttons over, beg your pardon. There you go.
The creators of some of the well-known games within Nintendo didn't believe in the Game Boy so much that it was originally called the Dot Matrix game.
Yes, it was.
As a derogatory term. Yeah, so it was developed off of the back of Game & Watch, like we said at the beginning. But if you look on the back of each Game Boy, the product model number starts with DMG01.
It is, and the Game Boy is known as the DMG. So if you ever buy spares for a Game Boy, they're all marked up as DMG.
DMG. Dot Matrix.
Wow.
Game.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the industry, within that word, it was a derogatory term. So yeah, it was built to fail, which is why he didn't make.
Which is why he didn't want to do it.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair,
how wrong they were, eh?
He gave them free rein and they came up with an amazing game that sold 18 million copies worldwide.
Wow.
In total.
Yeah, was it 29 million for the first 2 Mario games, a further 5 million for Wario Land?
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow. So were they the highest points for games for those?
I think
for that console.
I think they were definitely up there. I think you then had Metroid 2 as well that came in.
Okay. I would imagine Link would be
quite
up there as well, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And that's one of the games that's kind of
which I'm very surprised was on no one's list, by the way.
I wanted to, but then there's better versions of that same game.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they upgraded it on the Switch, didn't they?
Put it on the Switch,
yeah.
and then that changed it. And the fact that you could have multiplayer on the Switch as well, you couldn't do multiplayer with Link on the Game Boy. It changes the gameplay a little bit. But also, like the Link, so the Zelda game for the Game Boy was very similar to the one for the SNES, and it just comes after the one from the SNES. Like they'd had success with Link to the Past, and then went, oh, what have we got that we can make another one that's really quick? And that's what you get with
Link's Awakening.
But it's still a good game, but I just didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed Final Fantasy more than I enjoyed Link to the Past.
Hence why I made the list, mate.
Yeah. It had more.
Or was it Secret of Mana? Which one is it?
Secret of Mana. Technically,
by any other name.
So was it called Secret of Mana in this country and Final Fantasy somewhere else? Then
so Final Fantasy Adventure is the American version.
And then
the European version and the Japanese version. The Japanese version's got the Japanese name, but it basically translates to Secret of Mana.
Okay.
And then here it was called. In Europe it was called Secret of Mana, because the tree that you're trying to save is the mana tree.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice. Some good picks there, guys, I have to admit. Only a couple of clashes. I thought a lot of it was going to be clashes, to be honest.
I did as well. There's only like 5 games.
Not too
Can I
bad.
just cap that off? Does anybody remember the sort of remix tune that was released?
Yeah, I do remember. I don't know who did it. But
Super Mario Land by the Ambassadors of Funk.
Oh, Christ.
Because they recognised the fact that the game score was very much like house music.
I suppose.
Sorry, Super Mario Land had a remix.
Yeah.
I don't remember that one. I remember the Tetris one.
I remember it. It was just as annoying.
Yeah.
but no, the first one had a catchy tune to it. I remember it. Yeah.
It's recognisable. It's like all the Mario ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
It plays in the background. It plays in your head as well. Like,
It does,
you hear
yeah. And I think the games that came after it, the sequels that came after it were superior, but based on the tech available at the time for a console that was not meant to succeed, by the creator didn't even believe in the fact that any of it was going to work. Super Mario Land, I think, was such a classic game, and it was a bit bitty, a bit blocky.
It's not tried to mimic the theme from the previous games either.
No,
it's literally its own thing, isn't it?
Completely new.
But it was also a linear side-scrolling platformer, and every game that followed that tried to be a linear side-scrolling platformer with another element. As where this just tried to be a Mario game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have blocks, you have turtles and Goombas and all that sort of stuff. They're not as pretty as the ones in the other games, but
you recognise them, they're there, and it works, and that's why I've put it at number one, because it simplistic in format, but revolutionary at the time.
Like you said, you knew what it was because you played the previous ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. So, do we have any honourable mentions for this?
I've got a couple.
I've only got a couple myself, to be honest.
Quite literally. So, Looney Tunes, Tiny Toon Adventure.
Tiny Toons, yes, I remember that, yeah.
So that was another one where they looked like the characters, like Baby Bugs and all of those, and you ran through the platformer and you were throwing carrots at your enemies. That was quite good. I've got Castlevania series.
Yes, I was going to mention that, yeah.
They were really good as well. Double Dragon they brought out on it as well.
Yeah, they did. And Double Dragon 2, I think.
Yeah, and it wasn't terrible. And then, of course, I had one that I played, and I don't know if either of you two ever played it, but do you remember they did a Beetlejuice cartoon series?
I remember the series. Yeah, I never played the game, though.
I played the game, and I loved the game.
Is it good?
It sounds I
don't know whether it's good.
Right.
Because my memories of it are fond.
Right.
If I went back to it now,
I'd
be a bit, maybe this wasn't as great as I remember. But I remember at the time being a really great game.
Nice. Howard?
I'm going to let you down. I have no honourable
none at all. Wow. You usually have a massive list of them.
What you've got out of me is everything I think I legitimately played on the Game Boy.
To be honest, mate, you did pretty well with two lists. I barely scraped one. All right, so very close to what was going to be in number 5 instead of Alien 3 was Mega Man 5.
Ah, yes.
I really did like that. There's a good version of that on the Game Boy. Wave Race as well.
Oh, Christ.
I'm not sure if this is the tennis game you mentioned that was 2-player, because I only played it 1-player. It was a top-ranked tennis.
Yes, that
was that
it.
The one?
Yeah, because I think it brought out Mario Tennis, but it was way later down the line.
Yeah, this one's Metroid, obviously you mentioned. Yep. I'm gonna do a a Howard here, and I'm gonna take 2 ball suckers in this because they were fucking awful. So one of them is Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy.
Oh yeah, why bother? Why bother?
I was expecting Mortal Kombat for the Mega Drive for Christmas, and my folks decided to give me Mortal Kombat for the Game Boy. It is abysmal.
Child abuse.
Such a piece of shit. Like, you cannot do anything. It's slow frame rate. Not all the characters are playable. It is horrible. And then the second ball sucker is the Terminator 2 arcade game.
Yeah.
Fucking hated that. Never completed the first fucking level. It's awful. That stupid little square target thing you could barely make out, and the tiny the Terminators at the bottom that do that stupid, infuriating sound just aggravated me so much.
I've got to add as well, honourable mentions, just, in honour of G. It's the first console to have the Pokemon games on.
Yes.
You had to throw it in there for him, didn't you?
I had. They were okay. But that was what the link cable did, wasn't it? So where now we can swap Pokemon between our consoles.
Yes,
the link cable meant that if you got some on Pokemon Blue, you could transfer them to Pokemon Red.
Now, I thought about this because G was originally meant to be on this.
That's right, yeah.
Now, if he would have been on, what would his top 5 have been?
So Pokemon Blue,
games?
Pokemon Red, Pokemon Gold,
Scarlet,
Pokemon Silver. No, it was yellow, wasn't it? It was yellow, green, yellow, green, blue, red,
silver.
There you go.
That's what it would be.
Five.
That's what it would have been, yeah.
5.
Because I remember he was like, can I do like Pokemon, can I do Game Boy Advance, or can I do Game Boy like DS or something? I was like, no, just Game Boy. Color, sorry, Game Boy Color, beg your pardon.
Game Boy Color, just.
Bless him.
Well, he should have been on the episode.
Fuck yeah.
Exactly. I think we'll leave it there, guys. I think we did pretty well. Thank you for coming on the show. And guys, if you like what you listen to, follow us on Facebook at the M.T.V.B Podcast, or on Instagram at M.T.V Podcast, or on TikTok, M.T.V Podcast 197. I'd be Man, joined by
Super Mario.
And H the man with 2 lists.
2 lists this time. Yeah. Yes, guys, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.